Delighted to welcome the Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy Minister, Nadhim Zahawi, to the show now. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Julia.
I'm wondering if we're going to have any business, energy or industry left to have a strategy about at this rate. Keir Starmer, the leader of the opposition, has called for there to be a national lockdown. He calls it a circuit breaker, but it's just another word for a national lockdown. Prime Minister earlier in the year said absolutely there would not be another national lockdown. Yesterday, he said nothing was ruled out. Now we're told that ministers have been expected to hear an announcement as early as next week that we will have a national lockdown. Is that true?
Well, first of all, our focus is on the three-tier system for working with local leaders for local lockdowns. Over the weekend, we worked with Steve Rotherham in Liverpool, where they had to move to the top tier of that. Matt Hancock, the Health Secretary, is going to make a statement to Parliament today, and we're working with other local leaders looking at the infection rates, not just in Greater Manchester, but in other parts of the country as well, London and elsewhere. Look, Julia, you will know this and you'll understand this really well, in the sense that this is a really difficult balance of two harms: the harm of the virus and the harm it's doing, and the spike, and we have to get it under control, and the harm of a national lockdown to the economy, to actually, well-being and health as well. So it's not just livelihoods, it's health as well. Every decision we make, we take with a heavy heart, but we've got to work with local leaders to bring this virus under control through the three-tiered system. Because if we can do that, now Chris Whitty quite rightly says, one, the test and trace system is helping us identify the virus forensically, locally, and where it's spiking, which helps us in these conversations with local leaders. But two, we may have to go further. If necessary, so we rule nothing out.
Okay. Well, you say so rule nothing out and balancing two harms, but this is the thing. You're saying we're working through the three-tier system. We were doing the rule of six, the 10 p.m. curfew, and then within days of some of that coming into force, we end up with the three-tier system. And within days of those three tiers being announced, and we know where everyone is, different parts of the country in those tiers, the idea to make it simpler and clearer, and everyone knew where they were. Within days, we're now told Manchester and Lancashire, North East could move in from tier 2 to tier 3, that London could move from tier 1 to tier 2. What's the point of having a simpler, clearer tier system when on a whim, after a matter of days, when there has been no change whatsoever that is noticeable in the infection rate or death rates, nothing to justify it, the tiers are going to change once again in a matter of days?
Well, the infection rate and death rate is something obviously we look at carefully, but also the pace of infection is also important.
It's slowing. The rate of increase is slowing, not speeding up.
Which is good news where it is. In other parts of the country, it's not slowing. It's actually continuing to increase. The reason we've introduced the tier system is it's made much simpler. So, the 17 million people who've downloaded the app. And by the way, it's been complimented by President Macron, because they've had a real problem with their app. They've had to abandon it because only 1 million people downloaded it and many people started deleting it. Can now get notification as to which tier they're in. You can put your postcode into gov.uk and see which tier you're in. So yes, simplification is good, but the virus is moving rapidly. It's a fast moving situation, and we have to also move rapidly. As I said to you, it is really difficult, Julia. It's a balance between literally two harms, and that's why we're taking these measures, and we continue to review them all the time. You would expect no less, Julia. And I think...
Well, no, I would. No, I would expect a lot more, with all due respect. The tiers were introduced. Within days, they're going to change. You're saying you're working, the government's working with local leaders. Your words. Well, that's not what the Liverpool City Mayor, Steve Rotherham, says. It's certainly not what the Greater Manchester Mayor, Andy Burnham, says. They're saying they're finding out about things on Twitter or reading it in the newspapers. They're finding out about this stuff way after government ministers have made decisions. You're not working with local leaders. You're imposing these measures often against their will.
Well, first of all, we worked all weekend with Steve Rotherham, and I commend him for his hard work. Yes, we have disagreements. Yes, it was robust conversations. The same conversations are taking place with Andy Burnham, and including this morning. So we will always want to work with local leaders. You're now seeing the tracing system also increase its local teams from 95. Now it'll increase next week and the week after. As we get better and better at doing this, 700,000 people have been traced and isolated and are not spreading the virus through test and trace. So look, this is difficult, that we will have disagreements, but we want to work together with local teams, local leaders, and make sure we do this right. I think we've got to allow the three-tier system some time to actually see if we can control this virus, because a national lockdown is harmful to the economy and harmful to lives and livelihoods.
Well, we know this. I mean, government policy, I think a lot of people are concerned now, is being led by opinion polls, not scientific evidence. And a lot of those opinion polls don't take into account the real cost. 68%, according to YouGov, of people in England would support a 2-week national circuit breaker. This phrase people keep on using. It's not a circuit breaker. It's a lockdown. It wouldn't last 2 weeks. You wouldn't see the death rate going down in that time because of the 3-week minimum time lag. We were promised a 3-week lockdown in March. How many months later was it that we were actually allowed to have our homes, and we're still living under many restrictions? Many people never even came out of those full restrictions. Do you not think that the public deserve to be given more of the facts about what the real costs are of different decisions? It's very easy to respond to panic from the public if the public are told to panic, if we have graphs of doom like the Sir Patrick Vallance 50,000 cases thing. Now, we had 19,000 yesterday, 19,000, not 50,000 infections, death rate nothing like what he was predicting. And yet so many people in the public think that everybody's going to die from this virus. That's not the case. World Health Organization yesterday, a new study showing that under 70s have a risk of death of 0.05%. That's below the risk of dying from flu. And we don't close down our economy because people get flu. Why is the government being led by opinion polls and not the scientific evidence?
Well, first of all, I will place on record as the founder of YouGov that the government is not led by opinion polls. I can assure you of that, Julia. Today is Thursday. 2 weeks ago, the infection rate was at 7,000. Last Thursday, it touched 17,000, and now it's at 19,000. The three-tier system is, I think, the right way to go. It's simple. It's much easier for people to see and much clearer. Let's continue to work together. My plea to local leaders is, of course, you have to be robust in interrogating the data, looking at what Chris Whitty and the Deputy Chief Medical Officer say, and the data around that. And because we can see good data through the test and trace system, you can interrogate it. But let's work together. Let's control the virus so that actually we don't have to have a national lockdown. I think that is the best way to go forward, Julia.
Well, we can suggest, given the fact that every single country has attempted to control the virus and not a single country has managed to do that, maybe it's possible not to do that. If we're part of that effort to control the virus, do you think we should be paying taxpayers' hard-earned money, £7,000 a day, the equivalent of £1.5 million a year, to management consultants to run the test and trace system, the one that isn't actually working properly?
Well, as you can imagine, I've had this question several times this morning.
I bet you have.
And look, I don't know what the management consultants' remit was or what they're doing as part of this work they're doing. All I can say to you is the test and trace system will continue to improve. We will continue to make sure that improves. I talked about the 95 local teams now that are part of the test and trace system. That will grow by next week even further. 700,000 people have been identified and are self-isolating, not infecting other people. 17 million people have downloaded the app, which is now working, incredibly well, to the extent that it's getting compliments from President Macron. So, look, ultimately, we've got to make sure all our resources are focused on improving test and trace and making it, the best that we can make it, because it's absolutely part of our armory of defeating this virus. The three-tier system and the simplification of that is also part of that. So let's try and make this work. There are no easy decisions, Julia, absolutely not. But ultimately, we need to work together to defeat the virus.
We're not going to defeat. Do you know what, Nadhim Zahawi? Look, I've got so much time for you. We've got to stop using these phrases. Defeat the virus. We're not going to. You don't defeat viruses. Well, I mean, I think there's one virus we've managed to have enough of a vaccine for that's actually. I think was it smallpox, but that's it. We're not going to defeat the virus. We're going to have to learn to live with it. You know that. I know that. These are sound bites.
No, that's not true, Julia. I would just push back on that slightly. Look, there are 4 of the leading vaccine candidates are now in phase 3. That doesn't mean that we will get the vaccine tomorrow. We have to obviously be careful in what we say about these things. The testing has gone from 2,000 test capacity in March. It will be at 500,000 by the end of this month, and will go even further. So these are all interventions where we can actually go back to as normal a life as possible, as quickly as possible. But none of these decisions are easy. And as I said to you, it really is a balance of 2 harms. One is the virus itself and the harm it does to people. And the other one is the harm of a national lockdown and obviously the economic and
Business Minister Nadhim Zahawi, I really appreciate you joining us. Thank you very much indeed.